Stephen Sondheim is complicated and complex, and it's hard enough to convey emotions through spoken dialogue as it is. So when you add Sondheim's music and lyrics to the process, how do you tackle that with your actors?
You know, one of the joys of this piece is that the songs come seamlessly out of the dialogue. And that's one of the great geniuses of Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine in that amazing working relationship, because, you know, if you pulled the songs out of the film or out of the piece, it wouldn't work, because it's in the songs that the story is told. And characters are different at the end of the song than they are at the beginning. And it's all happening that way. And so when it's integral like that and organic like that, it actually makes it a seamless piece, which is what you hope for a musical. There's nothing worse in a musical than when you have that feeling like, oh no, they're about to sing, or oh, and you feel that seam and it starts to feel uncomfortable and awkward. This feels very much, for me, like one fluid piece. And the opening is a perfect example of that. The first 16 minutes, the prologue, it establishes the language of the piece. And so you understand there'll be singing and dialogue and singing and dialogue, and it will all be back and forth. And so that was one of the great joys of the piece, and one of the reasons I wanted to make it a film.
Great. I think a lot of people would say that Into the Woods is Sondheim's most poignant work, and it's one that deals with issues that are certainly still relevant today. There's always going to be some sort of giant in the world, something that we all have to come together to fight or to overcome. Can you talk about that and why this is the right time for a movie like that?
I know when it was written in 1987 that James Lapine said to me that it was in response to the AIDS crisis, and that's what the giant was in the world at that moment. But there always is a giant, I guess. I mean, that's just sort of life. What's amazing about this piece is, I have to say, I was watching the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. I was watching President Obama speak to the families of the victims. And he was, in a very compassionate way, he was consoling them and speaking to them, and he said, "You are not alone. No one is alone." And which is a song from Into the Woods, and I think probably the most profound song in Into the Woods in a way, and sort of the centerpiece, the moral centerpiece of the musical. And I really felt like this is an important message for today, for the kids of today, for families of today. You know, children are growing up in a much more fragile and complicated world than when I grew up. And I feel like to be able to say to kids when they're confronted with anything in terms of loss, or anything that's problematic, how do you get through that? That this lesson, that you get through it not alone, but with others, helping you get through as a community, is a beautiful message. And so in a way I feel like Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine were ahead of their time when they wrote this, because I feel like it's very much, for the post-9/11 generation, this piece, a fairy tale, a modern fairy tale, a twist on a modern fairy tale, that actually is relevant for families and children of today.
Fantastic answer. In the first act of Into the Woods, it's about wish fulfillment. But the second act is about the effect that the characters' wishes have on others, right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. You know, the whole idea of the consequences of what you wish is a really important and, I think, profound question. You know, everybody wants something so desperately in this piece. They wish for this, they want it so badly, but then ultimately, is it worth what you have to go to get that wish, you know? The lying and the stealing and the cheating, etc. And is it really ultimately what you want, you know? Is it what's right for you? I love that it brings up that question, because it's very true about life. You want something so badly, you see yourself this thing, and sometimes it's true and it can be right, but sometimes it's actually not what you wanted, or, you know, that question is such a great question to raise. And it's really a cautionary tale about wishes, which is very much like the original Grimm fairy tales. The original Grimm fairy tales were all cautionary tales for kids. You know, be careful. You know, there's a beautiful thing that Cinderella's mother in the tree says to Cinderella, "Are you certain what you wish is what you want?" And ultimately we find out with Cinderella, for instance, that maybe what she wished for is not what she really wanted. She was looking for something else, which she finds, I believe, at the end of this piece. And that's why I love the piece, because it doesn't end dark. You know, there's a darkness to it, but it has a great deal of hope about how you move forward.
Right. And the final question, it's sort of following up on that. The film's very entertaining and has a lot of wit, but it also has some very important themes, like the parent-child relationship, which is captured so beautifully in Children Will Listen. Can you talk about that and what you sort of hope people will take with them when they leave the theater after seeing the film?
I think what you know, the film deals with not repeating the sins of the father. I think that's a big sort of theme to it. You know, the witch holds on very, very tight to her child, and her mother held on very tight to her, and and cursed her with ugliness. And so now she's doing what she feels is the opposite thing, which is to, not let her child experience the world, which is the wrong thing. And it's about learning how to be a good parent. It's about learning how to parent. And that beautiful line from Children Will Listen, careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. And wishes come true, not free. All of that is so important about parenting and being careful about how you bring a child up and trying to be better than your parents were. I think that's I think everybody can relate to that. And there's such a sense of hope to the piece. I really think that's important to remember. I think this little family that's created, this sort of new family, must work together to start a new life. And that's incredibly hopeful as they rebuild. And that's what's so beautiful about this piece. It's inspirational in addition to being entertaining and funny and joyous and with all these great characters, but it says something important about life.